Welcome to the Lowdown. I'm your host, Dob Low, and thank God we're back, baby. Thank God we're back. Today we're going to talk about pre-combat checks. We're going to talk about all that Too Tough Tuesday stuff you guys know me for. I hope you love me for it too. Guys, I got a couple little funny points. Nothing crazy, you know what I'm saying, but a little bit of something like that. Got a little bit of news. Not a lot, but a little bit. First funny thing I saw is I saw a tweet the other day that made me laugh. It said, "What's wrong, B? You barely even touched your own advice you gave out." That's funny to me, right? Because here I am doing a podcast giving out advice. And, you know, some days I'm a slacker too, right? So that kind of checked me. It kind of put its chest out and, chest bumped me. What up, bro? That kind of a deal. Guys, I promise you when I do this show, I'm only giving out advice that I try to live by, that I genuinely believe in. I'm a very firm believer that you lead by example. You could take a man who's much more competent and can say all the right words, and he will never be as good as a leader as a guy who just simply leads by example. We see that in politics. I definitely dealt with that in the Army. Guys, if you are married, lead by example. If you are in a position of power, lead by example. If you are around kids, lead by example. Especially kids. Kids are so much more smart and receptive than I think people understand. And, that's one of the things about this show that keeps me in check is I have kids that are listening. Right, I've got some 14, 15, 16-year-old kids that are listening. And they've reached out to me already about how do I quit drinking soda? How do I get into reading? What do you think about these potential job opportunities? Things like that. Dude, my show's already been a success as far as I'm concerned. If I've got a couple of younger minds thinking about stuff like that, my show's already won. We've already got a winner. Ding, 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 ding. We got a winner. So I thought that was funny. The second funny thought I had is I traded my guitar in, I was telling you guys, and I actually traded up, which never happens for me. I normally always get burnt. I mean, burnt like bacon in the pan, baby. I get burnt every time I trade. But I actually traded up, and I was babying my guitar yesterday. And I got tickled because I thought, there's a lot of people out there who who would never put a scratch on their guitar and they keep it in the case and they would never trade it in. Never trade it in. But they don't feel the same way about their wife. Guys, the wife is first. Right, guitar is second. These worldly possessions, man. You can get another one. You can get something close to it. And if you can't, you could probably live without it. I just thought that was funny. I know a lot of guys, a lot of musicians who feel that way. Okay. Guys, we're going to talk about accountability. We're going to talk about taking your tool belt to work. Right? Working on your weak points. Achilles was the perfect warrior, right? Unbeatable, but he had a weak point. The Achilles. And so your weak points aren't going to feed your ego. Naturally you want to avoid them because you suck at them. People like to do things they're good at. That's just plain and simple. People very rarely want to go struggle at something, right? Because it's tough, it's hard. And so when you work on your weak points, you're not gonna feed your ego, and that's hard to do. But you got to do it, right? If you want to be the toughest, meanest dog on the block, you got to work on your weak points. Okay, that was a random spiel about weak points. Oh, no, that does tie into accountability, guys. You know what I'm saying? You got to be accountable for your own weak points. Nobody's going to help you out on those. But what I want to really get to is if you're going to be a carpenter, you're going to be needing a tool belt, right? You don't show up to work with no tools if you're going to build a house. And so when you're showing up to work with your tools, you need to be doing pre-checks, okay? And you can translate this over to your life. You're going to help your life out here. Now, you need to go through there and make sure you got a hammer, you got a chisel, you've got a tape measure, you've got a speed square, you've got a pencil. And then when you show up tomorrow, that's one whole thing you don't have to worry about. You can do it the night before while you're hanging out drinking a Dr. Pepper. And now that's done. So tomorrow's easier, right? Tomorrow morning I don't have to stress about my tool belt. And then if you want to get deeper than that, take it from a guy like me. Now I'm not going to show up to work and really be worth paying if you hire me to use a hammer with my one arm. And I understand that, right? I would never go to work and expect to get paid to use the hammer, even if that's the part of the job I want. But if I got money to go make and the only thing I know how to do is be a carpenter and I can't be the hammer guy anymore, well, then I've got to become the greatest saw man you've ever met. Right? I got to be able to read your mind on these measurements. I got to hear it once. That's all I need, and I'm going to cut it perfectly. Right? And I'm going to hold myself accountable on that. And I'm getting to all this because it's like sometimes when I'm out in the world, I see that people are so ill-prepared. And it makes me wonder about internal dialogue. I think most people would cry if they had my internal dialogue because I'm in my brain just going, boom, roasted. Boom, roasted. I do that to myself. I wake up, I have a bad day, I ask myself, you need a little pacifier? You a little baby? Right? Because I ain't giving no quarter to myself. I know if I give myself an inch, myself will take a mile. So you got to hold yourself accountable. When you make a mistake that's on you, you got to fix it. You got to apologize and grow. And this is all leading to one big point, guys. After you hold yourself accountable and you've done your pre-combat checks and you're thinking about tomorrow, I want to put a thought out there because I've been thinking about it. Becoming undeniable, right? Becoming a guy who has worked so hard, has studied so much, had prepared, had done that pre-combat check, had strengthened his mind up to the point that there's nothing out there that's not in your grasp if you really want it. I see so many people and it's like they're pursuing things, but they've got the gas pedal all the way down, but they never shifted gears. I don't know how to explain it. It's okay. Like this podcast. If I go and I look at the views and the views are down for a week straight, that's not on you, the viewer. That's on me, the podcast creator. People, if that happens to me, my mindset on that is, well, people aren't listening to my show because I'm not give a good enough product, right? If I want 1 million people to listen to this show, then I've got to become undeniable. It's got to be the funniest, most informational, motivational 10 minutes of their life. If I do that, I have no doubts it'll grow. So, in becoming undeniable, you're going to have to be accountable. Right? You're going to have to accept the fact that maybe things didn't work out because you weren't as good as you thought you were. Maybe you didn't work hard enough. Maybe you had a bad attitude. right? It could have been X, Y, or Z why this thing did not work out. But it didn't, and you've got to be honest with yourself. I feel like there's a lot of lying that goes on internally with people. You know what I'm saying? Well, this guy did me wrong because of this. Well, no. I don't think it's always the case. Not everything is an attack on you. I think sometimes it's just we're not as good as we think we are. You know, you gotta really recognize that. So I tell you what, guys, if I live for another 5 more years, y'all better watch out because I'm on my path to becoming undeniable. And I don't know exactly in what field, maybe just in life in general. But that's where I'm headed, man. That's the goal anyways, right? And so every single morning I'm going to wake up and do this show and get myself prepared. And I'm going to do my pre-combat checks. I'm going to look at my tool belt. And I'm going to think about what do I need to do today to become undeniable. I ask y'all to do the same thing. All right, guys, quick news. We got Britain backs the U.S. in the ultimatum that we talked about before with Trump to Putin. Trump gave Putin 50 days to end the conflict in Ukraine, or there were going to be mighty sanctions. The mighty hammer of sanctions will fall. Britain is apparently backing that. They're trying to get more weapons and blase to Ukraine. We'll see. We'll see. I don't imagine Putin really gives a turkey. Personally, I do not see Putin really caring about this. We just talked the other day about Japan sounding the alarm that China, Russia, and North Korea were forming the greatest alliance and threat to the Western world. I really don't see that Putin's going to care about England. England is falling apart anyways, right? That country is in massive turmoil, and they are trying to hide it so hard from the world that it's happening. That country is falling apart, and it's a very tiny island, so I don't think they care, personally. On to our second piece of news. Israel bombs Syria. U.S. is enraged. That's the headline I got before I clicked on today. I find it very interesting. I don't really, I really don't care. Right? I don't care if Israel bombs Syria. I was upset that we decided to go back and do business with Syria again. So now that doesn't mean that I want them to be bombed. But do I have this just over-mounting amount of compassion for Syria? I don't. I wish they would just figure this all out and put an end to it. But I don't think they're going to. Apparently the U.S. is enraged. He called Netanyahu a madman for doing it. Trump did. Trump called Netanyahu a madman. So, I don't know, guys. Sometimes it all just seems like smoke and mirrors. Hey, I told you to do this, you did that. But I'm not going to do anything back even though I told you not to. It kind of seems like to me maybe they pre-planned stuff. This is me putting on my tinfoil hat. Hey, I'm going to publicly tell you not to do this. But behind the curtain, I really need you to do this so it can be taken care of. But I can't politically take a hit. Okay, that was a deep tinfoil hat method there. But that's just a thought, right? Because none of this stuff makes sense sometimes. And I don't know why we all of a sudden care for Syria so much. Yeah, just a little strange to me. All right, guys. That's it. Song of the day. Ooh, on a Too Tough Tuesday? 16 Tons, Tennessee Ernie Ford. Probably the song I've listened to the most in my life, and nothing will slap you on the tail and get you to work like that. Guys, go get after it. Become undeniable. Hold yourself accountable. Life will get easier. It will improve. Love y'all.